Welcome to Electric Perspectives, a podcast that explores the innovations and policies shaping the electric power industry and how America's electric companies are delivering the resilient energy we need to strengthen America's energy security and power our daily lives. This show is brought to you by EEI, the Edison Electric Institute, which represents all U.S. investor-owned electric companies. I'm your host, Brian Reel. America's electric companies are working with technology partners to turn smart meter data into meaningful information that customers can take action on. On this episode, we're joined by Lou DeBrino, Vice President of Customer Operations at PSEG Long Island, and Ted Nielsen, Chief Product Officer at Bidgely, to learn more about one of these partnerships, the technology powering personalized energy insights, and what it takes to move from data to customer engagement at scale. We'll also look ahead at where AI and advanced analytics are taking the electric company customer experience next. Lou and Ted, thanks for joining us.
Of course, pleasure to be here.
Great to be here. Thank you.
To start off, Lou, what brought PSEG Long Island and Bidgely together in the first place, and what problems were you trying to solve?
This really gets back to, I think, looking to boost our customer engagement. And we had just gone through an full AMI deployment here on Long Island, which gave us access to a lot more data. So we were in a position now to find ways to enrich the value of our AMI data and use that as a means to continue to communicate with our customers at an even deeper level. And we did come upon Bidgely, and we did see a lot of value in the tools that they had to offer, and saw it, as I said, a great way to continue to improve our communications with our customers, enhance the customer experience, and really, as I said, take advantage of the AMI data that we now had access to.
And for anyone who may not have heard the term before, can you just explain what AMI is?
Yeah, AMI is our advanced metering infrastructure. And what it is we now have the ability with these meters at all our customer premises, so over 1.2 million customers on Long Island, we had the ability to capture usage data remotely. So no longer do we need to send a meter reader to the home to read the meter. We get constant feeds of data in 15-minute intervals, and really just a ton of data in terms of customers' energy use. And as I said, and then taking that usage and applying some of the analytics and tools I know we'll talk more about that Bidgely offers, it allowed us to really interpret that data and use it as a way, as I said, to enrich the experience with our customers.
And Ted, can you briefly explain how your technology platform turns the smart meter data into actionable insights?
Absolutely. I think Lou hit on the sort of core problem with just data is, in a lot of ways, you want to be able to put it to work. You want to understand what the data is telling you. And so I think for helping customers understand that it's not just a pile of electrons, it's not just usage, it's not just consumption, but there's appliances on the other side of that. And so Bidgely has built over the course of now over 12 years, over 24 different patents in the true machine learning disaggregation technology that powers our technology platform. And that takes that interval data that Lou was talking about every 15 minutes and helps break that down into the specific appliances that are being used and then information about that appliance. You can think about it almost like holding a prism up to a piece of white light and seeing it break out into a rainbow where you can see an electric vehicle is being charged here, or there's HVAC that's running here, or the pool pump is running. And that helps then on a deeper level understand not just what appliance is running and what appliance is running when, but important metadata about that appliance. It's not just that you're using your AC, but year over year, your AC is less efficient than it used to be. So maybe you're a great target for a weatherization program. And so this is something that you can do and get connected with a maintenance professional, or clean your filters, which is a good reminder for everyone as the seasons are changing. And so through machine learning, we're able to take what is today just a pile of data and convert that into these deep insights around appliances, appliance usage, patterns, propensities, and then put that data to work in real meaningful ways for the customer and building a stronger customer relationship.
Lou, what might be some examples of how those insights are delivering value to your customers?
So maybe I'll start even at the highest level. One of the things we like to say is in the past, we provided customers a bill. They get their monthly electric bill, and it would be just that, you owe X dollars or whatever it might be. As Ted was saying, the tools that we have with Bidgely, taking this data, we like to say we now provide them almost with a credit card statement that says, well, not only is this your bill, but $20 is going towards air conditioning, $15 is going towards refrigeration, and so on. So it starts to, increase the awareness of our customers just in terms of where their energy dollars are being spent. So that's at the highest, most fundamental level. And it's data now that I think provides the customers more meaning, more value for what they're spending, right? So now they can sort of connect it with something. So it's not just a bill that they're getting from the utility on a monthly basis. But we've found ways now, as Ted had started to talk about, is to use that data really in many different ways. We're able to use it to promote different programs. As I said, we get some insights into who has particular, or which of our customers have particular appliances that maybe we can take advantage of to promote, whether it's some of our peak load reduction programs where we have an air conditioning cycling program where customers are compensated if they can raise the thermostat a certain number of degrees during the summer and such. So this gives us insight to who those customers are that have air conditioning. One of the key uses that we've been using it of late is we rolled out a time of day program to all our customers, mandatory, all our residential customers. And what that program does is it aligns the cost of electricity, the cost that our customers are paying, more closely with what it costs us to either procure or produce that electricity. So we have peak hours, which run from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's when it costs us the most to procure electricity. And what we do is we now are able to send price signals or have our rates priced such that customers will pay more during those 4 hours while enjoying lower prices during the remaining 20 hours of the day, as well as weekends and holidays. So with that, we have found ways to use the data to really help our customers make informed decisions around what appliances they may be using during peak times, what they can shift, when they can shift, so on and so forth. So that's been very helpful. As I said, it's given us insight to various appliance end uses, who has pool pumps, who has electric vehicles, for instance, right? We have a 3-period rate where we incentivize our customers to charge their electric vehicles on the overnight, when electricity is cheapest for us. So we are now able to get insights into not only who has electric vehicles, but when are they charging? And what we can then do is proactively, engage with these customers to say, hey, you can be more successful on the rate if you could do this, and so on and so forth. So it's really, as I said, opened up just us to a wealth of data that we didn't have before, and really provide actionable recommendations to our customers, whether it's on the type of appliances, how can we marry it to one of our efficiency programs, and so on and so forth.
And Ted, what does that workflow look like? So if your platform identifies an interesting insight, how does that then get translated into actionable information? And then you have to reach the customer and then you have to change behavior. How does that all unfold?
Of course, and I think it actually starts even a little bit before that, because I think you heard in what Lou was saying a few different examples of, frankly, just business strategy. Like, we're trying to shift the peak load. We're trying to get people to adopt new rates. We're trying to help with electrification and try and replace hydrocarbon infrastructure with more green infrastructure. Each one of those goals and objectives usually then turns into a program or turns into an initiative or something that every utility is trying to go through right now. And so you can almost think about it right to left. Like, what is that objective? What is that goal? And then using either segmentation and targeting, or that really deep understanding of what's available and what appliances people are using, build personalized messages around specific examples and specific actions that specific household can take. And then you build journeys around that, whether it's through email messaging campaigns, in some cases paper campaigns, to help get the word out and then see. And I think PSEG Long Island has enjoyed extraordinarily high open rates and like rates on these messages and on these interventions that we build for these journeys for the customers. And I think this is, especially when we talk a little bit later about kind of where this is going and kind of how we see the partnership evolving, building more and more flexible journeys to really squeeze more juice out of the people that we know are going to be great targets. Because, for example, if you're only looking at a pile of electrons and you're trying to offer suggestions the best thing that you can do is say, spend less, like use less. When you know that they're charging an electric vehicle or they're running their pool pump, well, that's a very easy recommendation for someone to shift a ton of load. If they're using their HVAC during that time, you might need to intervene in other ways because most people don't want to really change their cooling behavior too much. So by understanding the specific appliances, you're then able to give really specific recommendations, and the customers really see that, they respect that, and they connect with it, and the feedback shows that.
I was just going to add, Ted mentioned the digital alerts. So that is an area where we've really tried to be proactive. As he was explaining, we've sent to date, I think it's close to 5 million alerts to our customers. And what they do is it really takes that bill disaggregation, takes that information, it gives customers insight to the top energy uses in their home. And we have that on these alerts. Say, well, these are the top 2 or 3, and these are the types of things that you can do to really focus on affordability, reduce that energy burden on the customer. So it does become very specific to the customer, to the premise. We don't have to go out, and many times you lose the customer if you're sending them information that really doesn't apply to them. And we've seen very high customer satisfaction, over 90% positive satisfaction in terms of customers who've, interacted with these digital alerts. We've had over a 60% open rate. So over 2.5 million, I think 2.6 million of those 5 million that we've sent out, we've actually been opened by customers. So they are paying attention. They do see value in this. And as I said, we are seeing it in the customer satisfaction results that we're receiving from them.
And as you were working to get this software set up, were there any hurdles early on, or how smoothly was the integration, knowing you had just launched a new AMI system as well?
Yeah, so I guess there's always challenges when you're working with a lot of data. We had further challenges. We've got a old customer information system that we're embarking on a revamp or a change to that now. But we actually had multiple partners. As I said, we were rolling out a time of day billing. We couldn't bill it in our customer system. We have another external partner that we use to help control the bills. But what it came down to was taking all of this data now that we had access through AMI. We wanted to make sure it was accurate, it was cleansed, and being able to feed that into the Bidgely tool to be able to have high confidence in the data that we were putting in, such that we would get good data coming out that we would share with our customers. So just a lot of focus on that, and working through that. Nothing that was insurmountable, but it did take some time, as I said, to make sure that we had everybody was comfortable in terms of the data, the integrity of the data and such.
And looking at what works, what doesn't work, when you're trying to engage with customers at scale, what have you found? And maybe Ted, will start with you because I'm interested in is, does it vary by region? Does it vary by state?
Yeah, I think what we found, and this is, I think, one of the benefits that our customer gets is Bidgely is a global company. So we work with large utilities sort of around the globe, have over 45 million meters under management. And I think what we found is actually people are people everywhere, right? Like they want to understand. And I think people, when they can connect their actual lived experience to the recommendations that are coming from their utility, that helps build trust between the ratepayer and the utility. And as I think the energy space is complexifying, particularly around demand and demand management, and what the advent of data center demand is doing, and additional electrification, changes in distributed energy resource infrastructure around batteries and solar adoption, having high trust between the utility and the ratepayer is critical. I think there's no question. And so what we found in terms of engagement is that seeing something that you can kind of recognize yourself in the mirror, like you open the email and the utility kind of has your back. It's like, by the way, you're charging your car during peak hours. We want to help you save money. Like, please don't do that. Like, charge it starting at 9 p.m. because then you can take advantage of, as Lou gave the example of that super off peak rate. And so I think by showing them, holding up a mirror, being able to recognize yourself in the mirror in that way, and then through interventions and alerts, actually helping someone improve their energy usage, use those tips, and then see a change on the other side of it. That's such an incredible flywheel. And I think that's been true in every region, whether it's in the Middle East, here on Long Island, or in California.
And Lou, have there been any early learnings of things that have worked particularly well or quick pivots?
I think, as Ted said, it really comes down to being able to provide information that is specific to that customer. And, just in the past, we've had tools where we did bill disaggregation, but in many cases, they were, we would have paper reports that would mail home to customers, and they would give sort of a feel for, oh, you're probably using this much, for lighting, cooling, et cetera, right? It wasn't as exact. Many cases we were giving a comparison to say, well, your energy use versus your neighbor, that type of thing, just caused a lot of confusion, because homes aren't always the same. They have different demographics, who's living there, how they use electricity and such. So, in many cases, that data or those reports really would, in many cases, cause more questions than answers for our customers, right? They didn't bring that value. So, yeah, I think what I've learned here is that, having specific actionable data that a customer can relate to really promotes, them actually adopting and taking advantage of that, and trusting the information that they get, and feeling that, they're working in partnership with the utility to get data that can help them, better manage their energy costs.
And have you received any feedback or reviews from customers since you made the change?
Well, we do customer research, and as I think I alluded to earlier, we've seen 90% customer satisfaction with the tool. We have gotten customer comments back where they do see value in this tool. We also see value with it for our employees. And one of the things that we do, many times we'll have our customers who call our call center who have questions about their bill, questions about their energy use. So being able to provide that very same data, arm our customer reps with that very same data, they're able to facilitate a much more thorough and thoughtful conversation with the customer about the energy use at their premise, and kind of work through to have a much better customer experience when they do call with questions.
And knowing that many employees of electric companies live and work in the communities they serve, do you ever hear things from your coworkers who also are getting these new insights?
We do, and we do use that as a way to gauge, the value that they see. We also get feedback that at times leads to tweaking it a bit and so on. But certainly, yes, that is something that we do look for. And when we first rolled this out, we were very deliberate in terms of starting slow, including some of our employees to get that feedback, such that when we did roll it out on a broader scale, you work through any of the bugs, or you refined or improved based on the feedback we were receiving.
And Ted, as this partnership evolves, what's the next frontier for providing helpful and actionable information to customers? And AI is always a buzzy word. Is that something that plays a bigger role moving forward?
Yeah, and I think, Bidgely's core specialty around disaggregation is already built around artificial intelligence. It's the traditional kind, machine learning. And I think over the last 2 years, we've made tremendous investments in specifically personalization through Gen AI. So whether that looks like increasing the number of digital channels that ratepayers can connect with their utility through chatbots that have that same level of highly detailed information that Lou was talking about is being offered to the customer service rep, you can put that and pull that directly into a chat channel. You can use that same experience to help drive and power call deflection through IVR integration. So when a person calls in, you can actually have them go through that exact same exercise to help defer a call actually reaching a rep, and have them focus on the most complicated and the most difficult issues. Similarly, when you think about automation at scale, I mentioned earlier this sort of complexification that's happening in the energy industry. That also is going to then come with greater needs for support and insights from agentic opportunities around, say, distributed energy resource management systems, EV managed charging, intervening on sort of starting and stopping, and sort of edge controls for the grid. And with this kind of information, with the kind of perspective that comes from knowing what appliances are running, understanding, what's happening on the edge, is going to become such a critical differentiator. So we've been talking a lot about AMI 1.0, this sort of like 15-minute interval data. There's more that's happening around a live feed of the actual usage, kind of second by second, and sometimes even sub-second interval data. And we're working very closely with one of the leading meter manufacturers over the last 4 years to bring the same disaggregation technology to the edge. So I look at it as investing at kind of all three tiers of the AI pyramid. Continue investment in our machine learning, both in the cloud and at the edge. Investments in Gen AI to help increase the level of personalization and interpretability of the data, and agentic AI to help with automation and creating greater scales and efficiencies for our partners.
And Lou, do you see technologies like this helping to support broader policy goals that the organization has?
Yeah, absolutely, right. I think in many cases, these types of programs, one from first and foremost from an affordability perspective, right? It's directly applicable there, and anything we can do to help our customers better understand and manage their energy costs, right? We know. Energy costs are essential, right? They become a burden, but anything we can do to make that better for our customers, it certainly has a role. Ted mentioned going forward, right? How do we use this, to increase efficiencies on our system? Right? Do we have the ability to take that data and potentially maybe have an area where we know we have load issues or load problems? We can sort of delay investment in a particular area if we're able to get to that data to understand. Okay, we can shift X kilowatt hours or X kilowatts during a particular period where we know we have temporary constraints on our system, and that may in fact delay having to do an upgrade, right? So to make a capital investment to a later time. We've experimented with that in different cases, especially with our air conditioning and the ability to cycle the air conditioning on and so on and so forth. That's provided us the means to sort of reduce peak demand. But how can we then apply that to specific load pockets, perhaps? Things along those lines, I think that there's a lot of value. We know there's a high proliferation of electric vehicles on Long Island. We've got over 100,000, electric vehicles now on the island or somewhere in that range. So what can we do to make sure we're not creating another problem where everybody is charging their electric vehicle at the same time, and it's creating really an issue that we didn't plan for, right? So we can now look into that, and we can find ways to maybe work with our customers so that everybody doesn't plug in their electric vehicle at the same time, right? They spread that over a number of hours, and therefore we've got the ability to sort of level that load or any load growth attributed with EVs. So certainly, I think there's a lot of potential, and as we continue to learn from this, we'll be able to find more efficiencies, even simple things in the call center. As I mentioned earlier, the ability to, maybe decrease the time of the call because they have access to data now that they can have a much more efficient conversation with the customer. They're not held up on the call. Or to Ted's point earlier, can we even deflect that call through a chatbot, through, the use of the Gen AI where they don't even need to call the customer center. And we know customers like to communicate in different ways. Some folks like to do everything digitally. We've seen a tremendous, movement of our customers to digital channels. So it continues to help in that front as well.
And electric companies drive a lot of innovation through these partnerships with tech leaders. If you had to point to one thing that makes these types of partnerships successful, what might that be, Ted? And I'd love to hear from you after that, Lou.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think Lou described a very sort of measured approach to the rollout of Bidgely's tools, like, starting with some employees and looking through the data and looking at ground truth and comparing and really putting the models and our product through the ringer. And what I'd say is actually they're an incredible partner because they're willing to play ball. I think they actually have and are looking and thinking about the future and are willing to adopt new tools. And so I think in a certain sense, like Lou may have described the relationship as one where they took a kind of measured approach, but I think even taking the step of looking at and understanding and seeing how this technology can kind of help transform their operations, and then rolling it out, adopting different tools, and frankly just being willing to play ball, right? I think that's a critical component of any partnership.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the one thing that I've seen just working with Bidgely over the years is really just this mutual respect of working and learning from one another. And I think we've both benefited from that, right? We've had challenges that they've helped us work through. And I think, just working together, we've also, I think help them to identify solutions and further the solutions that utilities are looking for. Certainly, I can't say enough about the Bidgely folks. Very the technical acumen. They're very innovative, but they're also very customer friendly. They understand the focus on the customer. They know what our goals are here in terms of what we're looking to do with technology, and really are a true partner in helping us roll out these tools and being with us there every step of the way, which I think has been great.
Thank you both for spending some time with us today and really just for the innovative work you're doing to help customers ultimately save some money.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you both as well, Ted. It's great being able to see you today and continue to talk through our partnership. Brian, thanks for facilitating the conversation.
And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode. To learn more about EEI's members and the electric power industry, visit our website at eei.org.